Hello, greetings, Monkey Mind alchemists. Last episode we found the crucible. This episode we found the map. And it turns out they are more closely related than you might think.
They are, yeah. I mean, they're inextricably linked.
Right, because, well, I want you to imagine for a second that you stumble across the original blueprints to a quantum supercomputer.
Okay.
But for the last, 600 years, humanity has just been using those exact blueprints exclusively as a parlor trick. To guess who they were going to marry, or whether they might come into some unexpected money on a Tuesday.
It's tragic, really.
It is. We took this profound, incredibly detailed diagnostic manual for human consciousness, and we turned it into a fairground novelty. So today, we are finally dusting off those blueprints.
And it is long overdue. I mean, we are dealing with an instrument that has been hiding in plain sight for centuries, largely because its true purpose is it's almost too vast for the modern mind to digest.
Right, the constantly distracted monkey mind.
Exactly. Without a bit of translation, it just looks like a deck of cards.
So, to you, the listener, before we dive into that translation, I want to plant our feet firmly on the ground we built in our last deep dive. We established a very specific foundation together.
Yes, the actual science of ancient alchemy.
Right. Not the cartoon version, not the guy in a velvet robe trying to turn literal metal lead into literal gold so he can go buy a castle.
No. The lead they were talking about was the human being.
Specifically the monkey mind. That raw, chaotic, grasping, completely reactive state of consciousness that, let's be honest, we all inhabit by default. That is the lead.
That is the raw material, the prima material.
Right, and you need a furnace to refine that lead.
You do. And as we discussed, the furnace, the athanor, is not constructed of stone and mortar. It's not a physical oven. The furnace is the faculty of human attention.
The friction, right?
Exactly. The friction generated when you notice your monkey mind wildly swinging from branch to branch, and instead of getting swept away by it, you just hold your awareness steady. That friction is the heat.
I love that. And the fire itself. That ambient, sometimes low, sometimes wildly spiking heat that we are all sitting in every day, that is the Earth's own electromagnetic pulse. The Schumann Resonance.
The planetary furnace.
Right. We are physically embedded in this planetary furnace that is cooking us, whether our conscious minds are aware of it or not. So if we have the raw lead, and we have the internal furnace of tension, and we have the external fire of the Earth's frequency, stepping into that process blind seems incredibly dangerous.
It is dangerous. You need to know the topography of the fire.
Which is the entire objective of our conversation today. We're going to look at the tarot. But to do that, we have to, completely deconstruct the neurotypical world's fundamental misunderstanding of what a deck of tarot cards actually is.
We have to strip away centuries of cultural baggage.
And that baggage is heavy, man.
It really is. We have to reveal it as an exact 78-station map of the alchemical process you are already walking.
Right, because when you drop the word tarot in casual conversation, the image that immediately springs into most people's heads is, well, it's a massive cliche.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the neon sign in a strip mall window flashing, psychic readings, $10. It's beaded curtains, heavy incense, a dimly lit room.
Sitting across a table from someone.
Yeah, waiting for them to flip over a piece of cardboard and give you a spoiler for your own life.
The fortune teller myth. It is ubiquitous. But, we have to ask why that myth took root so deeply in the first place.
Right. Why did it stick?
Because it's not an accident. It caters to a very specific, deeply ingrained vulnerability in the human nervous system, which is our absolute intolerance for uncertainty.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The monodine is functioning in a state of chronic, low-grade anxiety pretty much all the time. It is desperate for anyone, to manage the unpredictability of reality. It just wants a guarantee.
Just tell me what's going to happen so my prefrontal cortex can stop running simulations and I can finally relax.
Precisely. It is essentially an abdication of personal responsibility, isn't it?
We want the cards to make the hard choices for us.
We do. But if we look at this historically, a mere parlor trick, a simple mechanism for guessing the future, it does not survive 6 centuries of intense historical pressure completely intact.
No, it doesn't.
Think about what this system has lived through. It survived the Spanish Inquisition.
Right.
It survived centuries of extreme religious persecution where just possessing esoteric materials was an automatic death
Which
sentence.
is terrifying.
It is. It survived the massive paradigm-shifting cultural upheavals of the Enlightenment, where pure rationalism basically tried to scrub anything mystical from the human record entirely.
And the Industrial Revolution on top of that.
Exactly. A carnival game does not have that kind of staying power. It survived because it is a highly functional map.
Our source material actually has a brilliant note on this, and it's quite funny, honestly. It points out that the Fool, which is card 0, the very beginning of the tarot deck, he has probably been standing there for 600 years, finding our obsession with fortune-telling incredibly amusing.
Oh, without a doubt.
Like, the Fool is watching us hold a schematic diagram of the entire human soul, this map that charts the exact mechanics of psychological and spiritual evolution, and we are using it to ask, is Steve from accounting going to text me back?
It is the ultimate misuse of a sophisticated technology.
It really is.
And to grasp the actual technology, we have to step back. We have to look at the historical tapestry where this map was woven. We have to understand that the tarot is not, and never was, an isolated phenomenon.
And this is a major blind spot for a lot of people, myself included, until very recently. We treat these ancient systems like they're like separate aisles in a New Age bookstore.
Yes, the compartmentalization.
Right. You go to the alchemy aisle for your psychological transformation. You go to the astrology aisle to read your horoscope. You go to the tarot aisle for your card readings. But historically, that's just completely inaccurate, isn't it?
Completely. That is a highly modern, hyper-compartmentalized view of knowledge. In the ancient and medieval world, the great esoteric traditions were never competing disciplines.
They weren't?
Not at all. They were a single, unified inquiry. They were one massive investigation into the nature of reality, the structure of the cosmos, and the mechanics of human transformation. The crucial detail here is that this single inquiry was conducted simultaneously in 3 different languages.
Okay, let's look at those 3 languages, because this is where the underlying logic really starts to snap together for me. Language number 1, alchemy.
Alchemy spoke the language of metals, acids, and fire.
Right.
It was the language of the physical crucible. It dealt with the nigredo, the blackening, and the albedo, the whitening. We explored this in our last session, but we must understand why they use this language.
Why hide it in chemistry?
Because the alchemists used the terminology of metallurgy deliberately as a camouflage mechanism. It was strictly a matter of physical survival.
Because if you spoke plainly about what you were actually doing,
Yeah.
you wouldn't survive the weekend.
Precisely. In medieval and early Renaissance Europe, the religious authorities held a violent monopoly on the concept of the soul.
Right. They own the franchise.
Exactly. If you started openly preaching that an individual could dissolve their own ego, purify their own consciousness, and find a direct, unmediated connection to the divine without going through the established church, well, you were committing heresy.
And the penalty for heresy wasn't, getting canceled on social media.
Yeah.
It was being tied to a wooden stake and set on fire.
A literal physical burning. So the practitioners adapted. You did not write a manuscript about dissolving the rigid structures of the human ego.
That's a death sentence.
Right. Instead, you wrote a manuscript about dissolving lead in a bath of aquafortis. You documented the chemical stages of purifying a metal.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And the religious authorities left you alone. They looked at your laboratory and thought, oh, this is just an eccentric fool trying to manufacture physical gold to get rich. Leave him to his delusions.
So the language of chemistry was the perfect, impenetrable cover for the inner work of human evolution.
It was.
Which brings us to language number 2, astrology. Now, if alchemy was masking the inner fire with metals, astrology was tracking the exact same inner landscape, but projecting it onto the stars.
Yes, the celestial map.
Right. And the operating principle here is a phrase that has been printed on 1 million coffee mugs, but very few people actually understand the mechanics behind it. As above, so below.
That phrase is arguably the fundamental operating system of the ancient esoteric world.
Okay, break that down for me.
The concept is that the macrocosm, the vast, sweeping celestial clockwork of the solar system, and the microcosm, the intimate inner life and psychological state of the human being, are in a state of constant dynamic correspondence. They mirror each other.
I want to pause you right there, actually, and push back on this a bit.
Please do.
Because this is where a lot of highly analytical listeners will just completely check out. The idea that a giant ball of gas, millions of miles away, is dictating my mood on a Tuesday. It sounds like magical thinking. The planets do not cause events down here. Like, Venus going into retrograde doesn't physically break the alternator in my car.
You are absolutely correct, and that pushback is vital. The idea of causation is where modern pop culture has completely butchered the ancient science of astrology.
Right. It's not a laser beam shooting from space.
Exactly. The planets do not cause anything to happen in your daily life any more than a thermometer causes it to be 80 degrees outside.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
A thermometer is merely an instrument reflecting the ambient temperature of the environment.
Or like a clock, right? A clock striking 12 doesn't cause the sun to be at its highest point in the sky. It's just a mechanical reflection of a cosmic reality.
Exactly. The planets are reflecting conditions in the energetic field of the solar system, of which the Earth is obviously a part. They are mapping the vast macrocosmic archetypes onto the microcosmic human experience.
So they aren't pulling the strings.
No. When an astrologer looks at a chart, they are not looking at a list of physical causes. They are looking at the sky's version of a diagnostic map. They are reading the environmental weather of the mysterium.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Alchemy is the laboratory. Astrology is the cosmic weather report. And that brings us to language number 3, the tarot itself.
Yes.
I know the general shape of this, but I really want you to walk me through the historical timeline here. Because the tarot didn't just, fall out of the sky as a fully formed mystical tool.
Far from it. The journey of the tarot into the public sphere is fascinating because, much like alchemy, it began with a disguise.
Another cover story.
Yes. Its earliest documented appearance is in early 15th century northern Italy. It did not show up in the hands of mystics. It showed up in the courts of the nobility as a hand-painted card game called tarocchi.
Tarocchi.
Right. We have surviving records of decks like the Visconti Sforza, which was commissioned by the Duke of Milan.
So on the surface, the elite of Milan are just playing a complicated version of bridge.
To the untrained eye, yes, it was recreation. But look at the imagery that was painted onto those cards for this simple game. The Emperor, the High Priestess, the Wheel of Fortune, Death.
That's a bit heavy for game night.
Exactly. These are not trivial concepts. These are massive, heavy, foundational human archetypes. The imagery was ancient, but it was quietly holding the space in the form of a game, just waiting for an era where it could be recognized for what it truly was.
And when did that recognition happen? When did someone look at the game and say, wait a minute, there's a schematic hidden in here?
The major shift begins in the late 18th century with a French occultist named Antoine Court de Gebelin. He analyzed the major arcana of the tarot, and he experienced profound realization. He saw that this was not merely a game of tricks and trumps. He identified it as an encoded mystery tradition. Now, historically speaking, he made some bold claims that modern scholarship disputes. He loudly declared that the cards were a preserved book of ancient Egyptian magic saved from the fires of Alexandria.
Our source material notes that while his history might have been completely fabricated there's no hard evidence that tarot came from ancient Egypt at all. His instinct was dead on.
Yes, his instinct was flawless.
He might have had the wrong zip code, but he understood the magnitude of the building he was looking at.
He correctly identified that the symbols staring back at him from the cards were doing the exact same heavy lifting that the alchemists were doing in their texts, and that the astrologers were doing with their star charts.
They were mapping the forces of transformation.
Exactly. Court de Gebelin initiated the momentum that pulled the tarot out of the drawing rooms of the aristocracy and back into the unified esoteric inquiry.
And that inquiry really hit critical mass in the early 20th century.
Yeah.
This is where we get to the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. From what I understand, this was a society of British occultists who basically acted as the ultimate esoteric synthesizers.
They were scholars, mystics, and highly disciplined practitioners, and their greatest contribution was looking at all these fragmented systems, alchemy, astrology, the Kabbalah, and the tarot, and recognizing the underlying source code.
Hold on, you just dropped Kabbalah in there?
I did, yeah.
Let's not gloss over that because that's another massive system. For the listener who has no background in this, how does a Jewish mystical tradition fit into a conversation about Italian card games and alchemy?
It is a critical piece of the puzzle. The Kabbalah, specifically the framework of the Tree of Life, is essentially a diagram of how infinite, unmanifest divine energy cascades down through different stages of density to eventually become physical matter.
Okay.
It is a map of cosmic architecture, and the Tree of Life consists of 10 spheres known as Sephiroth, connected by 22 intersecting paths.
22 paths. And there are 22 cards in the major arcana of the tarot.
Precisely. That is not a coincidence. The Golden Dawn realized that the 22 major arcana cards were the visual, symbolic keys to the 22 paths on the Kabbalistic tree of life.
They saw the overlap.
They saw that the whole thing was one interconnected machine. And this realization culminated in a specific project in 1909, which produced the visual language of the tarot that almost the entire world recognizes today.
The Rider-Waite deck.
Yes.
Conceived by Arthur Edward Waite, who was a driving force in the Golden Dawn, and illustrated by Pamela Coleman Smith, who was an absolute visionary artist.
Her contribution cannot be overstated.
If anyone listening right now pictures a tarot card in their mind, you know, the fool about to step off a cliff, or death riding a pale horse, you are picturing Pamela Coleman Smith's art.
What Waite and Smith accomplished with the Rider-Waite deck was a masterclass in encoded wisdom. They took the unified theory of the Golden Dawn and baked it directly into the illustrations.
It's not just pretty pictures.
Not at all. It is not just a collection of evocative images. Every single detail is deliberate.
Give me a concrete example of that. Show me how the astrology, the alchemy, and the psychology are all happening at once in a single drawing.
Okay, let us look at card 4 of the major arcana.
The Emperor.
The Emperor. Got it. On a psychological level, the Emperor represents authority, structure, fatherhood, and the establishment of rigid boundaries. Now look at the art. The Emperor is an older man with a long white beard, sitting rigidly on a throne made of solid stone. The stone represents the immovable nature of his authority.
So that's the structural psychology.
Exactly. Now look at the astrology. The Emperor corresponds to the zodiac sign of Aries, the first sign, the fiery initiator, ruled by the planet Mars.
How did Pamela Coleman Smith encode that?
Look at the throne he sits on. It is decorated with 4 carved ram's heads, the symbol of Aries.
Oh, wow.
His robes are a vibrant, aggressive, Mars-like red. He's wearing armor beneath his robes, hinting at the martial, combative nature of the planet Mars.
That's amazing. And the alchemy. Where is the laboratory in that image?
Look at the landscape behind him. It is a barren, jagged, mountainous range colored in stark oranges and reds. A harsh, uncompromising environment.
Right.
In alchemy, this relates to the stage of coagulation and the element of sulfur. It is the dry, active, masculine principle of fire that burns away impurities to leave only the calcified, undeniable structure behind.
It's all right there.
When you pull the Emperor, you are not just getting a psychological prompt about authority. You are identifying a highly specific alchemical fire, the fire of Aries, the sulfurous heat of boundary making active in your own life.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
A single piece of cardboard is actually like a high-density zip file containing an astrological coordinate, an alchemical stage, and a psychological archetype.
A zip file is a very apt metaphor.
You shuffle it, pull it, and unzip the exact diagnostic information you need for that specific day.
Yeah.
But to actually read that file, we need to understand how the map itself is organized.
Yes, the architecture.
Let's break down the architecture of the tarot. We're dealing with 78 cards total, but they are split into 2 completely different weight classes.
They are divided into 2 distinct bodies of work that are in constant conversation with each other. The major arcana and the minor arcana.
Let's start with the heavyweights. The major arcana.
The major arcana consists of 22 cards, numbered 0 through 21. These are the deep structural forces.
The big stuff.
If we use a geological metaphor, the major arcana are the tectonic plates beneath the surface of your life. When these cards show up, they are not describing a fleeting mood or a minor inconvenience.
Right.
They are describing the underlying conditions of your existence. They are the grand, impersonal, archetypal themes. Things like the Tower, which is sudden structural collapse, or Justice, which is the inescapable balancing of the scales.
So when I'm pulling cards and a major arcana shows up, the universe is essentially turning on the high beams.
Yes.
It's saying, pay attention to this. The ground beneath your feet is fundamentally shifting, whether you realize it yet or not.
That is an accurate assessment. They are the macro movements of the soul. But as you know, we do not spend every second of every day dealing with tectonic shifts.
Thank goodness.
If we did, our nervous systems would collapse completely. We also live in the highly granular everyday world of traffic jams, annoying emails, sudden bursts of creative inspiration, and, arguments with our spouses.
And that is where the second body of work comes in. The minor arcana.
Exactly.
These are the remaining 56 cards. If the major arcana are the tectonic plates, the minor arcana is the daily weather. It's the texture of the actual work.
The day-to-day conditions.
And the genius of the map is how it organizes this weather. It divides the 56 cards into 4 specific suits. which directly correspond to the 4 fundamental elements. I want to spend some time here because this is where the esoteric map overlays perfectly with the modern realities of the monkey mind.
The elements are the language of our direct lived experience. Let us walk through them.
Let's start with wands. The suit of wands corresponds to the element of fire. Psychologically, this is your creative energy, your ambition, your willpower. It's that sudden, undeniable spark of inspiration you get in the shower that makes you want to completely redesign your life. It's the drive that keeps you up until 2 a.m. working on a passion project.
Biologically speaking, we might associate the energy of wands with dopamine.
Oh, that's interesting.
It is the neurochemical pursuit of goal, the motivation to act. It is the heat that initiates movement. But as with all elements, it has a shadow. What happens when the monkey mind is fueled by unregulated fire?
It burns out. Unregulated fire looks like jumping from one explosive, all-consuming obsession to another week after week without ever sustaining the heat long enough to actually forge anything real.
Yes.
It's starting 50 projects and finishing 0.
Exactly. Next, we have the suit of cups. Cups correspond to the element of water. This is the vast, deep realm of emotion, intuition, relationships, and the interior life.
The deep waters.
It encompasses love, profound grief, the desire for deep connection, and the ache of loneliness. It is everything that flows, fills, and sometimes threatens to drown us.
If wands are dopamine, cups are the limbic system. It's the emotional processing center. And water is such a perfect analogy here because water is the ultimate solvent.
It is.
When you are hit with a sudden wave of grief, you can't logic your way out of it. Your prefrontal cortex is useless against a tidal wave. You just have to let the water wash over you and dissolve whatever rigid ego structures you are holding on to.
That is a profound alchemical insight. In the laboratory, water dissolves. In the human experience, deep emotion dissolves the calcified defenses of the ego.
Then we move to the suit of swords. Swords belong to the element of air.
Yes.
This is the realm of the mind, of thought, intellect, communication, and conflict. It's the search for truth. But it's called swords for a very specific reason. Intellect is a blade.
It is a vital tool for severing illusion. A sharp intellect can cut through deception and reveal a crystal clear reality, but a sword has no allegiance.
Right. It cuts whatever it touches.
Exactly.
And if you turn that blade inward, you have a disaster.
Yeah.
The suit of swords is arguably where the monkey mind does its most violent, frenetic swinging.
Absolutely.
This is the prefrontal cortex kicked into overdrive. It's rumination. It's lying awake at 3 a.m. running simulations of arguments that haven't even happened yet to try and protect yourself.
Creating hypothetical threats.
Yes. It's the harsh, cutting internal monologue that tells you you aren't good enough.
Yeah.
That is the air element whipped into a destructive hurricane inside your own head.
Which is why the final suit is so necessary for balance. The suit of pentacles, or coins.
Earth.
Pentacles represent the element of earth. This is the physical body, the material reality, resources, money, health, and nature.
Yeah.
It is the slow, methodical, deliberate work of tending to things across time.
It's the somatic baseline. When the air element has you spinning in an anxiety loop, the earth element is what brings you back.
Yes.
It's doing the dishes. It's paying the taxes. It's feeling your feet on the floor. It's building a foundation brick by brick. It is the grounding wire for the whole system.
And here is the synthesis that ties this entire conversation back to our first deep dive.
Yeah.
These 4 suits, wands, cups, swords, pentacles, are not just clever psychological categories invented for a card game.
They're not.
No. They are the exact same 4 elements the alchemists were manipulating in their physical laboratories: fire, water, air, earth.
Wow.
And they are the exact same elements the astrologers mapped onto the zodiac. Wands are Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. Cups are Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. Swords are Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. Pentacles are Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn.
It is entirely unified. When you shuffle this deck and pull a card, say the 3 of Swords or the 7 of Cups, you are pulling a specific alchemical formula.
Yes.
You are identifying the exact elemental composition of the furnace you are sitting in on that particular day. You are reading the weather report of your own monkey mind.
We have established the architecture. We have the daily elemental weather of the minor arcana and the deep tectonic currents of the major arcana. But a map is useless unless you walk the territory.
We have to actually use it.
We need to track the specific journey that the listener is actually taking through this system. We need to trace the spine of the entire process.
The Fool's journey.
Yes.
This is where it gets incredibly personal. The Fool is card 0.
Yeah.
He's the very first image in the major arcana. And The Rider-Waite artwork for this card is iconic for a reason.
It is unforgettable.
You have a young person standing at the very edge of a sheer cliff. He's looking up at the open sky, seemingly completely oblivious to the drop right in front of him.
Yes.
He carries everything he owns in a tiny little bundle tied to a stick resting on his shoulder. There's a small white dog leaping at his heels, and his front foot is literally hovering in the air.
Yeah.
He is mid-step into nothingness.
He is stepping out of the known and into the mysterium. And if we map this directly back to our previous exploration of alchemy, the fool's identity is undeniable.
The fool is the monkey mind.
Yes. He is the prima materia. He is the raw, unrefined lead. He represents the untamed starting material of human consciousness.
Before the fire.
Exactly. He has no experience, no hard-won wisdom, no structural defenses. He just has pure, unadulterated, unshaped potential.
A lot of people, when they first look at the fool, they kind of project their own anxieties onto him. They think, well, he's an idiot. He's not looking where he's going. He's about to walk off a cliff and destroy himself.
That is the mundane interpretation, yes.
But in the esoteric tradition, he isn't stupid. He's just empty. He is the blank slate. He is the pristine state of mind before the conditioning, the trauma, and the societal programming take over.
He is unconditioned.
And every single card that follows him in the major arcana cards 1 through 21 is an archetypal force he has to walk into. They are the stations of his transformation.
They are the crucibles. The Fool is the lead, and the remaining 21 cards are the various qualities of fire he must pass through to become gold. And to prove how perfectly unified this ancient science is, we can take the 4 exact alchemical stages we discussed last time and map them directly onto the major arcana.
Let's do that, because this is mind-blowing. Stage 1 of the alchemical process is the nigredo.
The blackening.
Right, the burning down. In our actual lives, this is the crisis. It's the falling apart. It's the agonizing moment where everything you thought was real, secure, and permanent turns out to be an illusion. Where does the fool encounter the nigredo on his journey?
He encounters it in its purest form at card 16, the tower.
The tower.
The imagery here is violent and uncompromising. A tall stone tower is being struck by a massive bolt of lightning from a dark sky. The golden crown that sat at the top of the tower is knocked off, and human figures are plummeting headfirst into the darkness below.
Give me a real-world example of the tower. Because it's not just, having a bad day at work, is it?
No, the tower is structural collapse. A real-world example is a 20-year marriage ending suddenly when a hidden betrayal is revealed.
Oh, wow.
Or a career you built your entire identity around vanishing overnight because the industry collapses. The tower represents the sudden, dramatic, unavoidable burning away of a structure that was never fundamentally true to begin with.
Right. The foundation was flawed.
The ego built a fortress on a foundation of sand, and the universe sends lightning to correct the error.
It feels like an absolute disaster when you are the one falling from the window.
Mm.
But from an alchemical perspective, it's actually a liberation, isn't it?
It is the ultimate liberation.
You can't refine what hasn't been broken down.
Yeah.
The lead has to be thrown into the hottest part of the fire. The false structure has to be leveled so you can see the horizon again.
It is brutal, but it is a necessary brutality. The nigredo clears the ground, and once the ground is cleared, we reach stage 2 of the alchemical process. The albedo.
The whitening.
The washing. The ash settles, the fire dies down, and you can finally take a breath. Where's the albedo in the fool's map?
It's right next door. The very next card after the total destruction of the tower is card 17, the star. And the tonal shift between these two cards is breathtaking. The tower is violent noise. The star is absolute pinpoint silence.
The visual representation is perfect for the albedo. A naked woman kneels peacefully by a pool of water beneath a clear, starry night sky.
It's so calm.
She holds 2 jugs, pouring water onto the land and into the pool. It is the clearing after the fire. It is the first cool breath of something truer and more authentic.
If the tower is the crisis, the star is the morning after a terrible week-long fever finally breaks. You are sitting on the edge of the bed, you are physically weak, you are completely emptied out, but your head is finally clear.
Yes.
The false structures that were making you sick are gone. There is space. There is quiet hope. You are resting in your own naked truth without any defenses.
That is exactly the albedo, but you cannot stay at the pool forever. Eventually, energy must return. This brings us to stage 3, the citronidos. The dawning. The light begins to return, and the alchemist gets their first genuine glimpse of the gold.
In the tarot, the citronidos is card 19, the sun. And again, they didn't hide the imagery here. It's a brilliant, massive sun, radiating warmth and life, shining down on a naked child, joyfully riding a white horse out of a walled garden.
It is the return of vitality, but it is a conscious vitality. The shadows encountered in the previous stages have been integrated. The emotional clearing of the star has been established. Now, the light of conscious realization returns.
So the monkey mind is quieted.
The monkey mind is no longer operating out of fear or defense. It is operating out of genuine awareness and joy. It is the clear vision of who you are beneath the noise.
Which brings us to the destination. Stage 4, the rubido, the reddening.
The final integration.
This is the crucial step, because alchemy isn't about escaping the world to live in a cave on a mountaintop. It's about taking the gold you forged in the fire and bringing it back down into the marketplace. You live fully in the world, but you are no longer possessed by it.
This is beautifully depicted in the final card of the Major Arcana, card 21, the World.
The world.
A figure dances joyfully in the center of a green laurel wreath. In the four corners of the card are the symbols of the four elements: the lion, the bull, the eagle, and the angel. The journey is complete.
Yeah.
The lead has become gold, and the gold is fully integrated into the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual reality of the individual. The four elemental suits of the monkey mind are in perfect balance. The Fool has navigated the entire mysterium and emerged whole.
It's an incredible narrative arc. But here is the profound irony of the map, and I think it's one of the most brilliant architectural choices in the whole deck.
What is that?
The destination of the Fool's journey, the ultimate goal of integration and balance, is represented by the very end of the cycle, card 21, the world. But the mechanism of that integration, the person the Fool must become in order to consciously walk the path, is found right at the very beginning. Card 1, yes. The Fool is card 0. He arrives with pure, unshaped potential, staring at the sky, carrying nothing. And the very first archetype he encounters on his journey is card 1, the Magician.
Yes.
The Magician is standing confidently at a table. And what is resting on that table?
All four elemental tools. He has the wand, the cup, the sword, and the pentacle laid out before him. He has mastered the minor arcana. He understands his own daily weather.
And look at his posture. One hand is holding a wand, pointing straight up to the heavens. The other hand is pointing straight down to the earth.
As above, so below.
He is the conscious channel. He's receiving the divine energy, the macrocosmic fire, and deliberately directing it into material reality. He isn't being tossed around by his monkey mind. He is tending the furnace.
The transition from card 0, the Fool, to card 1, the Magician, is the entire point of the great work. The monkey mind has become the alchemist.
The lead is now doing the work.
The unconscious, highly reactive prima materia has transformed into the conscious, deliberate operator of the tools. Now, this is crucial. The Magician does not get to skip the crucibles.
Right, he still has to walk the path.
He still has to face the tower and death and the devil, but he faces them with awareness. He uses the fire to continually refine himself rather than letting the fire consume him.
So we have this unbelievably rich, multi-layered map of the internal furnace. It charts the psychology of the monkey mind, the elemental tools, the planetary influences, and the specific alchemical stages of transformation. But in our last deep dive, we established that the furnace isn't just internal.
It is not.
There is a macro furnace. The planet itself is a crucible. The Earth's electromagnetic pulse, the Schumann Resonance, is the actual physical fire we are all sitting in.
Hey, external fire.
So the multi-million-dollar question is this. How does a 600-year-old esoteric map of the human psyche connect to a planetary frequency that we can literally measure on scientific monitors in real time?
To make that leap, to connect the subjective map to the objective science, we have to introduce the mythic bridge. We have to discuss the concept of Gaia and Sophia.
Okay, let's go there. Because this is the exact intersection where hard science, ancient myth, and alchemy meet. Break it down for me.
The concept of Gaia is one most people are somewhat familiar with, especially in ecological circles. Gaia represents the body of the Earth.
Physical planet?
Yes, it is the biosphere, the physical organism, the incredibly complex, interdependent web of biological and geological systems, the oceans, the forests, the atmosphere that sustain life. It is the material reality of our planet.
It's the hardware.
But in the esoteric framework, Gaia is only half the equation. The other half is Sophia. In the profound mystical traditions, from the Neoplatonists of antiquity to the Gnostics, and woven deeply into the philosophical currents of alchemy, Sophia is the wisdom principle.
Sophia is the wisdom.
She is the anima mundi, the soul of the world. She is the animating conscious intelligence that permeates the physical body of Gaia.
Let's clarify what we mean by Neoplatonists and Gnostics for the listener who hasn't spent years reading dusty philosophy books. These were ancient schools of thought that fundamentally rejected the idea that the universe is just dead rock and empty space.
Correct. They understood the cosmos as a living, breathing, intelligent entity. The Earth is not a dead terrarium that we just happen to live on. It is a conscious organism.
And Sophia is the mind of that organism.
Sophia is the consciousness of that organism. And
Good.
crucially, these traditions assert that human intelligence is not separate from Sophia. Our consciousness is a localized expression of the Earth's consciousness.
Okay, so if Gaia is the physical hardware, Sophia is the operating system, and we are localized programs running on that network.
That is a very modern way to phrase it, but yes.
Now, let's bring in the Schumann Resonance. We know from our previous deep dives that this ambient electromagnetic field is the Earth's natural pulse, generated by lightning strikes around the globe. It rises, it spikes, it falls.
And it does this on its own schedule. It possesses its own inherent rhythm and intelligence. We do not control it.
No, we definitely don't.
And from this mythic alchemical perspective, the Schumann field is Gaia Sophia's own energetic signature. It is the planetary crucible. The fluctuations in that electromagnetic field are the alchemical fire.
And because our human nervous systems evolved within that exact electromagnetic cavity over millions of years, our brainwaves entrained to it. We are embedded in it. When the field surges, we are being cooked.
People feel it on a somatic level.
Oh, absolutely.
During a massive Schumann spike, people report feeling inexplicably anxious, their sleep is disrupted, their monkey minds go into overdrive, their bodies ache. They think they just had too much coffee or a bad night's rest. But in reality, the planetary furnace just got turned up.
So if we are living inside this intelligent, fluctuating planetary furnace, what is the role of the tarot?
The tarot maps the soul's journey through that exact furnace.
That
The
is-
map is designed to interface with the intelligence of the field.
I need to stop you again, because this is the exact point where a highly rational listener will throw up their hands.
I expect they will.
When you introduce the idea of shuffling and pulling cards in relation to an electromagnetic field, people immediately jump to magic. They think, are you seriously telling me that the Earth's magnetic field reaches into my living room, grabs my wrist, and physically forces me to pick the tower card on a day the resonance is spiking? Because that sounds absurd.
It sounds absurd because it is absurd. That is the neurotypical misunderstanding of cause and effect creeping back in.
Right.
We are so conditioned by Newtonian physics to expect that A physically strikes B to cause C, but that is not how this technology works. It is not causation, it is correspondence.
Let's unpack correspondence. We're talking
Yeah.
about Carl Jung's concept of synchronicity, right? Meaningful coincidence. Though the ancient alchemical word correspondence feels much more robust.
It is the ultimate expression of as above, so below. The principle of correspondence states that different planes of reality, the physical, the energetic, the psychological, the symbolic move in tandem, reflecting the same underlying truth without directly physically causing each other to happen.
Give me a metaphor for that, because it's a slippery concept.
Think of a symphony orchestra. When the conductor signals a massive crescendo, the violin section and the brass section both swell in volume at the exact same moment.
Okay.
The violins did not cause the brass to play louder. The brass did not force the violins to play. They are both responding to the same underlying intelligence, the conductor's score, simultaneously.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah.
So when the Schumann field is experiencing a massive spike, a day of intense energetic turbulence, a high heat day in the furnace, and you sit down, shuffle your deck, and draw the tower, the magnetic field didn't move your hand.
No, but the field is turbulent. The microcosm of your life, embedded in that field, is turbulent. The archetype of the tower reflects that exact turbulence.
The violin and the brass are playing the same note.
It is Sophia, the wisdom principle, speaking through the symbols of the map to confirm the conditions of the field. The map is simply reflecting the reality of the environment.
It's exactly like checking the weather radar on your phone during a storm. The radar app on your screen is not causing the thunderstorm outside your window,
Exactly.
but it's perfectly corresponding to it. It accurately reflects that you are standing in the middle of a torrential downpour. The tarot is the radar for the Schumann field and your internal alchemical state.
That is precisely how you must view it. And when you understand this mechanism of correspondence, the tarot completely sheds its carnival trick reputation.
It's not a parlor trick anymore.
It becomes a profoundly practical, necessary tool for navigation. You are no longer a blind victim of the field's energetic fluctuations. You are an aware participant in the mysterium. You can read the radar and adjust your inner posture accordingly.
Which brings us perfectly to a real-world example of this exact dynamic in action. I want to share the origin story from our source material. We spend a lot of time on the macro theory of living fields, ancient architecture, and archetypes. Now, I want to bring it down to a very specific, undeniable moment of correspondence that sparked this entire project.
The very first entry in the Golden Monkey Tarot Library.
Yes. So the creator of the Golden Monkey Project had established the framework. They understood the monkey mind, they understood the Schumann Resonance as the furnace, and they set the intention to bring the tarot into this framework as the map.
To unify them.
Right, to start pulling a card each day and letting the map speak alongside the Schumann data. So they went to retrieve the Rider-Waite deck. And the detail here is incredibly poignant. The deck was pulled from an unopened drawer. It was literally covered in a layer of dust. It hadn't been touched, used, or consulted in a very long time.
The tool had been left dormant in the dark.
Dormant and waiting. So the dust is physically blown off the box. The intention is firmly held in mind. Show me the map. The deck is shuffled, and the very first card is pulled for this massive new endeavor. And what was the card? The Ace of Wands.
What a profound, almost staggering communication from the field.
I want you to break down exactly why that is so significant, because if a listener doesn't know the deep elemental architecture we just discussed, they might hear Ace of Wands and just think, okay, a picture of a stick, so what?
To understand the weight of that pull, we return to the elements. What did we say about wands? They are the element of fire.
The spark.
They represent creative energy, ambition, the spark of inspiration, the initiating dopamine, the will to begin. The ace of any suit is the absolute, undivided root of that element. It is the prima materia of that specific energy.
And the imagery on the card itself is incredibly striking.
It is. The image is a glowing, ethereal hand emerging from a luminous gray cloud, grasping a thick, living wand that still has green leaves sprouting from it. It is the universe offering the spark of pure, raw potential.
It's the moment of conception. It's the beginning before the beginning even has a name or a shape.
Exactly. Look at what the hand is doing. It is simply offering the wand. It makes no demands. It has no complex 5-year strategic plan attached to it.
It's just a gift.
It points only to the pure potential of what has not yet been decided. It is the initial necessary surge of alchemical heat.
The planetary field sent the fool a card about absolute beginnings. On the exact day, the exact hour, he decided to begin a new journey. You literally cannot make that up. The correspondence is so loud, it's almost deafening.
It is the living, undeniable proof of the framework. But it also highlights a very specific, very difficult kind of alchemical gold. The ability to receive the spark without immediately trying to control or manage it.
Oh, man. The monkey mind hates pure potential.
It despises it.
The monkey mind wants to take the Ace of Wands, immediately open a spreadsheet, draft a business plan, worry about how it's going to monetize the wand, and stress about what happens if the wand breaks.
The monkey mind suffocates the spark with premature structure.
Right.
The alchemist, however, the magician, takes the Ace of Wands and simply holds the heat. They allow the potential to exist to warm them without needing to immediately define its final outcome. The gold of the Ace of Wands is the grace of receiving.
Just letting the hand from the cloud offer the wand and having the courage just hold it. It's so beautiful. And it perfectly encapsulates what we're trying to do with this deep dive.
It really does.
So let's pull all of this together. What does this all mean for you, the listener? We have covered a massive amount of territory today. We've traced centuries of hidden history, we've broken down esoteric architecture, we've connected the psychology of the monkey mind to planetary frequencies, and we've tracked the alchemical stages of the soul.
It is a vast map.
But the core takeaway, the gold you can actually put in your pocket today, is incredibly simple and incredibly grounded.
Yeah.
You do not need a medieval laboratory full of bubbling glass beakers.
No, you do not.
You don't need to consult a crystal ball in a dimly lit parlor. You don't need to join a secret hermetic society.
You do not even need to spend decades mastering the complex mathematics of astrology or the Kabbalah to benefit from them. The geniuses of the past, Waits, Smith, and countless others, have already done that agonizing architectural work for you. They compressed the universe into 78 images.
The map is honest. It was forged by honest minds who were wrestling with the exact same anxiety, the exact same grief, the exact same frantic monkey mind that you were wrestling with today.
They walked the same path.
It points to something profoundly real, a territory of the human soul that no scientific laboratory has ever been able to put under a microscope, and that no rigid religion has ever truly been able to fence off and own.
The library of human wisdom is open. The diagnostic tools are readily available to anyone willing to look.
They are. You can literally pull a deck from your own dusty drawer. You can shuffle the cards, pull one, find out exactly what station of the fire you are currently standing in, and see what the living feel of the earth has to say to you today.
The journey is inevitable. You are already in the planetary furnace.
We all are.
The only choice you actually have is whether you will walk the path blind, letting the monkey mind dictate your reactions to the heat, or whether you will pick up the map. The fool picks up the map, steps off the cliff, and discovers that the falling is the teaching, and the landing is the gold.
The falling is the teaching, and the landing is the gold. That is the perfect distillation of the great work. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought. Something to chew on as you step back out into the mundane world. As you sit in traffic, as you answer those emails, as you deal with the sudden, unpredictable spikes of your own monkey mind.
The everyday crucibles.
We talked about the Fool being the raw starting material. We talked about the Ace of Wands being the undeniable spark of pure potential. And we talked about how that exact spark was hiding in a dusty, unopened drawer until the precise moment it was needed. So my question to you is this. If the Fool is your raw starting material, and the Ace of Wands is the spark of your next great evolution, what is the dusty drawer in your own life right now? What ignored everyday part of your routine, what forgotten hobby, what avoided conversation, what dormant tool is actually hiding the exact alchemical fire you need to strike your next stage of transformation?